I suppose the crux of it really comes down to, when we get to the nitty gritty, is we have to learn to forgive without the need for an apology. Sleepy boy today. We're just arriving now, so hopefully it's not cancelled again. So I have decided I want to do some oil painting, and I've got this handy little gadget that helps me get lids off. Does anyone else have trouble getting the lids off their paint tubes? Because I find golden range of acrylic paint, the caps break, they're useless. Oh, this is Winsor & Newton, my white, which is the big one. I find that, yeah, they get stuck. Sometimes I try using like rubber gloves, because that obviously gives me more grip. And I'm just pondering on what colours to put out. It's been a little while since I've done any work on this one. This one is a study of J.W. Waterhouse's paintings called Hylas and the Nymphs, and this is a detail from it. And I'm just wondering whether to go limited palette. Yeah, maybe. I just maybe extend the Zorn palette a little bit. I don't like to be too limited. And I'm not sure about using black, so I'm pondering. And then I've got Prussian blue and phthalo green. So these two colours you've got to be a bit careful with, because they can be very powerful and staining. So do I use those or miss them out? Anyway, I'm just pondering. But suffice to say, I'm obviously here at the studio, and I think I mentioned in the last vloggy, it kind of feels like a little while ago now, but I basically mentioned how I hadn't left the house again for several days. I think it was over a week actually on this occasion. And this does happen intermittently to me. So if you've been here a little while, you might have seen a couple of, times I've talked about this. I do suffer from a little bit of agoraphobia, and, I had a bit of a problem this morning getting out. So it's, I'm quite pleased that I'm out and I'm here. Jeffy's cosy sleeping in his bed under the desk over there. He's been a really good boy. He's my little studio buddy today, and I won't be bringing him in tomorrow because I've got a bit of a funny day. It's a bit all over the place. So anyway, yes, suffice to say, I got quite a lot of comments saying, would you talk about the fact that, you struggled and you didn't go out and what's going on and all that kind of thing, because, I know I'm not the only one. You'll have to let me know if you feel the same. But since the lockdowns, basically, so 5 years ago now, things unfolded since then, and the world is a very different place. And not everything has changed, but everything in the kind of structured situation where there's regulation or forms to fill in, what I like to call in life, boxes to fill in and hoops to jump through. All of that has got, a lot. The other thing that I feel really different is that because many of us didn't socialise certainly as much, and some of us, if at all, many of us had time on our hands because places were closed. Like for me, I lost a part-time job I had in the shop, and also my part-time art class that I was teaching a couple of times a week. My income stopped, my work stopped. I still had my artwork, and I ended up setting online and starting this YouTube channel, of all things. And I know I said this at the time 5 years ago, where I felt that we wouldn't notice or realise the full impact and implication of those changes. You know, it was a massive change, and it wasn't just for a week, it was for an extended period of time. So it became, you know, our norm, if you like. And I feel like I'm still impacted by that, or the reaction to it, even though obviously, you know, we're out and about and things are back to normal, sort of ish. I don't feel they are. Anyway, I feel like that's impacted me, but I also feel like pre-menopause, menopause, and I'm kind of post-menopause now. The tunnel of that, I always describe it as a tunnel because it is a tunnel, and sometimes it's a really cozy, dark, safe place to be, this tunnel. So if you are a little bit apprehensive about menopause, please don't be. It's a very magical time, and it's not all hard. You know, it's like anything. There are good parts and there are difficult parts. At the same time, I do also acknowledge there was a squeeze at times as well, and that has really impacted on, you know, how I want to socialise or how I don't want to socialise in more specific. So yeah, that is all going on, and so I have to adapt to these new layers of myself which are, you know, flowing through. There's always a new unfolding and new realizations. Sometimes it feels like a new discovery, sometimes it feels like a rediscovery, a remembering, but it's just unlocking those layers of ourselves to become, you know, even more embodied in our authentic selves, if that makes sense. So I, like anyone else, has to kind of work with what I've got each day, you know, energy levels, and also, you know, I like to check in regularly with my emotions. And so I've actually been doing, let me just take you over here, hang on a sec. Yeah, I've actually been doing some art journaling around all this. And this little lady, focus please. So she is a girl with lost wings. I'm going to do another version where she's found them, and I think I might flip her rather than back to back. I'll do it so they're more facing each other, and then one has, you know, found her wings. And I guess, you know, sometimes when I'm at home I feel like that. I feel like I lose my wings a little bit. So you'll have to let me know, you know, if any of this relates or resonates with you, because as I was saying here, I know I'm not the only one. So yeah, let me know down there. Anyway, I'm just going to come back to the nook for a minute. I could just settle you here. Don't know, am I in shot? Yes. Sometimes when life feels a bit chaotic, or even just my head sometimes just feels a bit chaotic and overwhelmed, I always find that coming in here and doing some creativity, it's where I find some healing peace. And yeah, it's most welcome indeed. I'm very grateful for this space. But, you know, as I've said in here before many times, I didn't always have a space. I didn't always have a studio. And, you know, when we were travelling in our little van, I had a teeny tiny suitcase, and it lived under the bed. And I worked with trays, so I had trays so I could put all my art supplies out and then just tuck things away when we were, you know, in motion and en route somewhere, and then I didn't have to tidy up so much. So this is a real luxury for me, but it hasn't always been like that. Sometimes it's been a corner of a dining table, sometimes it's been, you know, on a place on the floor. When we were travelling and we were off season, we were sort of wintering in Italy and Greece. That was the first year we went travelling, and there are other videos up, so yeah, I'll maybe link some up there. Suffice to say, I had a yoga mat with me, and I used to put my yoga mat on the floor and I'd work on it, you know, because I wouldn't worry about spilling things on the yoga mat, so I could make a little bit of a mess with my inks and stuff and my paint. Anyway. Let's have a coffee, shall we? My little friend is awake. Hello, Vloggy. Say hello to the Vloggy. He's more interested in my laptop because he can watch telly on it. Can't you? You want to watch telly, don't you? Yeah, he wants to watch telly. I've just been over to see my friend because I saw a hat a couple of weeks ago at one of the markets I went to, and she makes some beautiful things. There was one of the hats I was thinking about and I didn't get it, so I went back to get it, so I couldn't find it. My friend wasn't actually there. I did end up finding some more hand warmers, and I've got these lovely ones as well, which I got quite recently, but you can never have enough wrist warmers, hand warmers. Sometimes it gets quite cold in here, so it's nice to be cozy. As you can see, I really love brown. So this is a nice warm brown, and these are a nice cool, so rather nice. It's like a really big floor, like a charity shop, and you can make donations, so you can leave, you know, stuff that you don't want, you can swap, you can leave a donation, it's that kind of thing. So, you know, these are a real bargain. I am gonna have some coffee now. If I can move this little pup. Can we just sit you there? Because otherwise I can't move, you know. Poor Grammy can't move. I am his grandma, you see, so I call myself Grammy. I gave him a haircut last week, just his head. So I don't know if you can tell, he looks less like a teddy bear. And my daughter was saying he was looking a bit like a teddy bear, so I thought maybe I should just give him a little trim. I tried really hard not to get his nose whiskers. So you'll have to let me know if you groom dogs, how do you not get their nose whiskers in there when you're trying to brush? I don't know if you can see him. Hang on a sec. Can you see? Yeah, he's just plonked himself like that. How cute is he? He just wants to watch telly all the time. Anyway, I feel like I'm a little bit bed hairish today, but there you go. Am I going to get some painting done today? I think I am. It's just taking me a little bit of a while to get round to things, you know, so I will show you a little bit of the process that I did on that art journaling page though as well, because that was really fun. And one of these, so I've just grabbed this one. I've still got all the paper dolls. I'm just gonna pop those somewhere safe to the side for now. We will come back to them probably next month or December. I'm just gonna move my squeaky chair out the way as well. Just watching what those edges are doing, but I don't want to go in too heavy. This is just the quinacridone burnt orange, by the way.
The day that you came, you were so little.
All my art tutorials and art journaling process videos, as well as lots of other fun, inspiring behind the scenes content, is available in our lovely Patreon community. You can click the link below in the description to check out what we get up to over there. And a big shout out to all my Patreons, past, present and future, for supporting me over there.
Faster than me.
Ultramarine.
So if you're worried that a chance will pass you by,
A little bit more of the phthalo blue.
and if you're standing on the sidelines wondering why,
Focus please. We fitted quite a lot more on the page, and it was kind of like, you know, a fairy talking, having that conversation, which I quite like. And this one, she's kind of like, yeah, on her own, feeling a bit lost. I mean, she doesn't look completely hopeless. And when I painted her, it was the full moon as well, so I'm sure the energy of that impacted on the piece. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with my packed lunch and then, you know, put something on for Jeff, I think, on the YouTube.
sometimes what you want ain't what you need. Sometimes letting go can make your heart bleed. Sometimes the road ahead seems dark as night. Yeah. Have some faith in yourself, that's the guiding light. You should know that when your dreams have hit the ceiling and fallen back down on the ground, let me tell you, I know the feeling. I used to live in that town. One door closes, another swings open, that's life. And not to dwell upon the darkest hour, they say, is just before dawn.
think it's really important when we show up and perhaps we have low energy to recognise when we're tired. So if we can stop when we need to, that's great. I know some of us can't, you know, if we're working a job and we are a slave to our schedules, then it's easier said than done. I used to, when I was in that situation, I used to take little bathroom breaks, and that was my moment just to regroup and recharge until I could actually go home. I always think that I would rather paint when I'm not tired, because when I start getting tired, just noticing a couple of things I want to add here. Once you step back, it's much easier to see. Anyway, so I would rather stop before I get to that point where I start making mistakes. And it doesn't matter if you do make mistakes, you can always, you know, begin again, start again. Wipe things off if you're working with oils, which is rather lovely. It's just nice while you've got a colour on your brush to, make the additions right there and then. And then you've got that little bit of colour on your work. Anyway, what was I saying? I think it's really important to stop when we can and find a little place to rest, because I think sometimes you show up and, you know, maybe you don't find the magic, and that's okay too. I don't want to go in with my teeny tiny brushes, so I'm trying to stay this kind of size. You know, not huge for this size of canvas, but also not too big as well. Anyway, I'm just checking on Jeffy, who was watching YouTube. So I think I'm going to take him home, and I will be back tomorrow. And I've got my life drawing class tomorrow night. It's the second one, so I've had a really good time last week. It finally happened. So I think last time I saw you in the previous vloggy, just to kind of update you, it was all cancelled, and then it was cancelled again, and I didn't actually think it was going to happen. But it was brilliant, and the model's amazing, and the teacher's amazing, and so yeah, it was really good for me. So it will help feed into all my figurative work. But if you're having some going slow moments, or some going slow days, or even like me, some going slow weeks, it's absolutely okay. Give ourselves permission to slow down. There's too much bombardment from every direction, isn't there, at the minute? In my opinion, anyway. Are you for real, or are you just too cute? Are you just too cute? What is that tail? Look at that. Yeah. I have to excuse me having my supper, but it's that time again. It's art class tonight, so brought my vegetarian sausage salad with me and some tea, and I'm going to get going in a minute because I would like to pop to the library, see if I can find a nice book as well. So I'll probably see you in the morning, I would say, and I'll show you what I did in art class tonight. There were a lot of people absent last week, weren't they? So I've just had a bit of a difficult conversation, a little bit of an uncomfortable one in a way, because I had to complain about something. Well, I didn't have to complain, but I feel like it's really important to, you know, as long as we do it in the right way. But I was really disappointed from my life drawing class last night. The first week was amazing. So I've kind of got like a roll of work from week one, and then a roll of work from last night. Energy wise, I don't have energy to go out in the evening. So it's quite a big, push for me to do it. And I jiggle a lot of my necessaries around, and I jiggle a lot of my work things around to do it. Anyway, I don't mind doing any of that because it's something I wanted to do. I want to, improve my skills with the figure and faces and proportions and gesture and all of that. Speed as well and accuracy. Long story short, there wasn't a proper model last night. The teacher is very good and, managed to find somebody to volunteer who isn't a model and did it fully clothed. And we were doing contour drawing. Last night's topic was contour. So that's line work and accuracy. And she was doing shape as well. Now, you can't really see accurately, obviously, if you've not got the nude form in front of you. You can't see the lines, the muscles, the anatomy. It's just, you can't see it. That was disappointing to start with, although I was really grateful that somebody stepped in. But the other side of it as well, if they're not a proper model, a pro model, it's actually really hard. It's not just like sitting still, you know, you have to have some dynamic poses. And let me unravel my roll from last week first of all. And I won't show you everything, of course, because it'll take too long. But so these were from week 1, and I've got, you know, basically hundreds of these little quick sketches. We did 30-second poses, really dynamic, and then we did 1-minute poses. I think the longest pose we did on this one was 3 5-minute poses, and there's one of those over there. You can see the body lines, you know, the proportion, the different angles, different foreshortening, different weight bearing, so many different things. You know, it was very interesting, and I learnt a lot in a really short space of time. But you can see the poses were very different. So, you know, and I had a lot, you know, there wasn't really any quick dynamic poses to warm you up or anything like that. And then you can't see the body form, the muscles, etc., because of the clothes. I rang up and not complained about it, but just was transparent in my disappointment, I guess. The teacher said to us in class, you know, she had a car full of pumpkins and that she was going to set up some pumpkins for the contour. And I just thought, I'd have probably gone home. Is that really bad of me to just go home? But it was just after the expectations, I guess, of week 1, it was just so amazing. And this model was so dynamic and the teacher's really good and the combination of the two was amazing. And I really felt like, you know, I was finding my feet with life drawing again. And I said on the phone, you know, I don't want to complain, but at the same time, if people, you know, don't air their truth, then, you know, nothing's going to change and give and nobody knows anything about it. And she said, the first thing I'm going to say to you is thank you. And she said, I know that might sound a bit strange, but she said, if people don't tell us and we don't get this feedback, we don't know. And we want you to have the best experience and courses that we can possibly offer. So I'm going to take this to my managers and, you know, come back to you. So it was like, oh, okay. And I said to her, you know, I don't mind if there isn't a model. I appreciate, you know, life happens and things can't always work out. But it would be nice for me to have a heads up maybe on the Monday so I can plot my week, not attend that week, and maybe have another class in lieu or money back indeed on the class that I missed because there isn't availability of a model, which is what I feel I signed up for a life drawing class. Is, you know, the nude form. It's one of those things that I've been wanting to do for so long as part of my self-care and also my own, you know, professional development as an artist as well. I think, you know, you can never have enough drawings from life, and I spend a heck of a lot of time in the studio drawing from my imagination, drawing from references, rather than actually drawing from life these days. And so I thought it would be really amazing for my own, you know, artistic practice as well, because as you know, I do a lot of these little big, whoops, it's speaking to me, it's falling down. We much prefer the dynamic poses for sure, but yeah, these little figures that I do, I have to know a little bit of anatomy, realism as well, because then I can stylize from that. I like something to have a convincing face, a convincing figure, hands, feet, that kind of thing, even if it is a little bit stylised in my art journaling figures. Anyway, I digress. I made the phone call. You'll have to tell me as well if you're the same about phone calls, because apart from anything else, I don't like being on the phone. I just don't like being on the phone. I mean, in the last video, I think it was, I really don't like wires, and so there were so many comments from people saying, I really don't like seeing wires as well. So yeah, let me know about the phone, because I don't know if I have a phone phobia, but it's a very large hesitation to go on the phone. So when it's like a difficult conversation, I was never going to get cross and stuff about it. Take this as a sign. If there's something that you've kept quiet about, maybe on some occasions we need to speak up, don't we? So if you needed to hear that, let me know in the comments what you're going to speak up about. There's a way to do it really respectfully and politely without getting angry and judgmental and blamey about it. Usually people, try their best at things, and we have to remember, don't we are all human, and usually people, don't do things on purpose. Oh well, c'est la vie. I think, that's the lesson, isn't it? As in many things, and I have learnt so much of late in the last sort of 6-9 months not to sweat the small stuff, and this is small stuff, it's not big stuff, is it? So yeah, we have to navigate it a little bit and speak out where we feel it's appropriate in a really calm and respectful way, of course. Yeah, I still got something out of it, but I probably wouldn't have gone. Well, I wouldn't have gone if I'd have known before and was disappointed. Anyway, been thinking quite a lot of late, side by side with doing my artwork really. It comes to me time and time again that doing our creativity, be it painting, knitting, whatever it is, and see I've got these beautiful knitted gloves that I got from one of my patrons, lovely Marianne. I love them so much, and I love you too, of course. Yeah, they fit so well and they're so soft and they're so warm and they're so comfortable as well, so I'm going to really try and not get paint on them. These are my favourite pair at the moment because I've got 3 brown pairs now. I love brown, so that's fine with me. Anyway, no matter, you know, what your area of creativity is, whether it's in the kitchen, in the garden, in the art studio, indeed. But I notice, you know, for me, painting, drawing, that is where I really go deeply within, and I can do a lot of inner work and I can do a lot of healing, not just with the art journaling. And so I put this reel up, and I've just been reading the comments as well as the comments about a little blog post I put on my Patreon as well yesterday. I've got a Patreon cafe. It's called the Pop-In Cafe, and so I pop in there, and every Tuesday I do a longer post talking about stuff, you know. I just said to people, you know, comment healing if you're doing the same process as well, which is basically learning to let go when you haven't got closure. So maybe sometimes, you know, things happen in life and they aren't anybody's fault or anybody else's making or doing. Sometimes in life, you know, obviously we are at fault, we are human, and so we mess up. You know, I mess up all the time. But what I like to do is to own stuff and to take responsibility and, you know, make apologies, make amends where you need to. And I think sometimes in life, for me anyway, and you'll have to let me know if you've experienced this as well, you probably have, but you've had experiences in life where there's no closure. Somebody has completely cut you off without talking to you, and so you haven't had chance to say your side of things. And for me, this has happened a number of times in some really quite important relationships in my life, where I feel, and this is me, I feel like I have been scapegoated, and the person that has blamed me for something, so something's happened that's maybe not very good or something that's really horrible, but instead of, you know, coming to talk to me and saying, you know, did you do this, or did you say this, or is this the situation, they've listened to somebody else who was actually the person who created the problem. Let's say, I don't want to say fault and blame too much, because I think there's a fine line in that. But at the same time, you know, you're innocent. You're completely innocent of things that you have been scapegoated for. Anyway, that's happened to me a number of times in my life where I've just literally been cut off. Right, that's it then. Deleted on, you know, phone, WhatsApps and things like that. Just, you know, it's been really, really quite a strong reaction to being scapegoated, so it's not just a small thing. So when I said a while ago, you know, earlier on in this vloggy, it's not about sweating the small stuff, it is about putting energy into the larger stuff. Sometimes that looks like, you know, painting quietly. I don't have music on, nothing, I'm just painting and I'm really concentrating, and that is a discipline for me. Yes, move my paintings forward and improve, because I really want to get, you know, really good at what I do, but at the same time it has an other healing quality of things that are going on in the background, in the subconscious mind, and, you know, the mindful movements of creating, whether it's, you know, cooking, gardening, you know, whatever that is, where you're creating something. We have an innate need to create as human beings anyway, don't we? But it's really important to spend some time on the bigger stuff, I think. Anyway, when obviously faced with these situations where you are cut off, or you're scapegoated or blamed for something that's not you, and this kind of situation, and there's no airing, you know, there's no, oh well, it can come out in the wash because there'll be an airing. It's just literally, it leads to this big, like, break. Not like a break like that, in a sense. It's more painful than that in a way. It's more like that. So if this was a branch, it's more like that. Does that make sense? And so there's still a connection there, but you've just been, you know, cut off from the relationships beyond that, because obviously everybody has a circle, and so you're Yeah, I've been cut off a number of times, and it's felt really unfair. So anyway, going back to my reel was talking about, you know, even if you're in that situation, it's still really important to own the responsibility of the hurt of that. So even though I didn't create that for myself, I'm here to learn about being human. I'm here to better myself. I'm very keen on self-development, and that being an ongoing, ever-growing, ever-learning process where I'm always a work in progress. And I know that. So take it as a lesson and take the responsibility and move through it. So I always talk about the Going on a Bear Hunt book on here and in my art journaling videos over on Patreon, because you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go round it, you have to go through it. It's a bit like menopause and that tunnel, or indeed menopause, because, you know, I'm certainly sure that men aren't completely immune to changes in their mid to later life. We all go through portals, don't we? I mean, I know it's different in a kind of physical sense for a woman as well, and there's lots of physiological stuff, but menopause, not quite the same thing, but there's still, you know, we have to mention that as well. But yes, it is a tunnel, and the tunnels can get very, very cozy and dark and warm and safe, and that's a lovely place to be, you know, when you're cocooning. But then they can also get very narrow and dark and cold and scary, what's around the corner, and squeeze you a little bit as well, you know, when the walls are coming in. So you have to go through. You have to go through. And I think, you know, for me, creativity is a really important way through. And so in the reel, I put, when something's not your fault, but it's still your responsibility to heal it and process it. And there's no getting away from the fact that sometimes that can feel really unfair and unjust. And I put, but peace asks for accountability, even for what broke us. So the important lesson is learning to let go, let it go, let them go, without the need for closure, without the need for that, you know, conversation, so that you can air, you know. And for me, that's where journaling comes in a lot. I can't stress that enough. If you haven't tried journaling and just writing, you don't have to be an artist and, you know, think I've got to do an art. No, it doesn't have to be creative. It can be just writing. It's so cathartic and therapeutic. I can honestly say it is my most important mental health tool, as well as my creativity. You know, those work side by side, hand in hand, so beautifully. And I suppose the crux of it really comes down to, when we get to the nitty gritty, is we have to learn to forgive without the need for an apology. And that is really hard sometimes, isn't it? So let me know, you know, and if you want to share a little bit more, do feel free to share in the comments, because it's always really healing to read each other's stories, isn't it? We don't feel so alone. And also it's nice because other people can make, you know, we can have conversations down there. So that's really important. People say to me, how do you let it go? I let it go in layers. I often, usually can't do it all in one go. And certain hurts, things that we, you know, are grieving, because a lot of it can be, you know, grieving as well, even if, you know, someone hasn't actually passed away, it never truly leaves us. But if we learn to forgive and let it go without a need for the apology, then we're free of it. And that is where the healing is. But that doesn't happen overnight. We know this, don't we? So when I do it in layers, and I often do it not with talk therapy, with a counsellor, but, you know, obviously if you need support, reach out. It's very important. But for me, my journal, my writing, my creativity, definitely talking to James with things, that really helps. So talking to loved ones, but not so that you ingrain it even more into your neural pathways. It is with an intention to heal it, so it's a slightly different avenue of thought on that. But yeah, layer by layer is how we do it. The quote by it's in one of my journals. Let me just see if I can find it. Can I find the right journal when I need to? A little bit of a challenge for me, but I think it's in this journal. Hang on one second, that's James, and I just need to talk to him for a minute. Yes, so I found it. It's in this little journal, and it's a quote by Heather Ash Amara. Like layers of an onion, there is more to be peeled, and each peeling is sometimes accompanied by a fresh shedding of tears. And I've never forgotten that quote. And yeah, so I'm quite impressed that I knew which journal that was in. There is a flip through of this journal actually on YouTube, so I'll link that somewhere in case anybody likes a peek in that one. I've been having a chat, as I say, in the Pop-In Cafe with some of my Patreons, and we've been talking about loss and letting go and then realigning. I think that's James now. Hello?
Hello, my love.
I did you a list for the shop. I'm just vlogging. Do you want to say hello to the vlog? To my microphone if you want.
Hello, vlog.
Oh, going back for Jeff?
Yep.
All right then. Remember to ignore him.
Ignore him.
Ignore him. Just be bored
Yeah.
when you get home.
Yeah. Tough love.
He gets very excited, so you have to, like, you know, we try and keep him calm by just doing all the protocols, you know. All right then. I'm gonna just nip off here, and I'll be back in a minute because I just want to give him a kiss. You know how it is. What was I saying then? It's about loss. It's about letting that go in layers. It's about realigning. And when we're doing something like our creativity, that is our, you know, our space in our brains. It's downtime, it's slow time, it's meditative, it's mindfulness, and it gives us a space to do our work, to do the healing that's going on underneath. I think it's one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves at the moment in this world, is to give ourselves some time to do nothing, or one thing at a time, or some creativity, because that's where we unearth the greatest treasure, isn't it? That's where the diamonds are, where all the gems are, hidden down under the layers in the dark. And if we don't have that brain space, and we're filled with, you know, multitasking and too many tabs open and too many jobs and overwhelm and overloaded, we don't get that headspace to just come back to ourselves, come back to our centre, and address those things that we need to go through in order to heal and let go of the layers. So I think that is another key way of doing it, certainly of facilitating the doing it part. And at the end of the day, it's not a pretty or an easy process, but it is powerful and it is worthwhile because it's the road to freedom. And I think that's why I penned the phrase freedom journaling, because we can journal about things that we want to get free of. And so that's where the freedom is. And then we're free to come back to our authentic selves without all our defences and that kind of thing up. We can function in spaces, in the world, you know, in our 3D world, and not be, you know, trigger happy all the time and getting triggered by everything, because we've done the work, the quiet work that nobody sees. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Anyway. So I think I'm going to leave it there for today. That is my progress. I've probably been painting for about an hour and 20, something like that. Try to slow down as much as I can so I don't lose concentration. There's a bit of funny glare on it, so hopefully the camera is picking it up. I think I'm going to go home now. James has gone home a bit earlier today so that I had a bit longer in the studio for my painting time, and that was really nice. Felt like a bit of a luxury to be able to, you know, stay here and not go home for Jeff. Usually I get sort of mornings in the studio and then have my lunch and then sort of have to start thinking about getting home for the boy. I don't like to leave him longer than half a day, but James is getting back for Jeff, but also we're having an electrician come round because we've got a bit of a problem in our bathroom with the extractor fan. Nothing interesting, you know. People have been asking as well what I use to clean my hands after I've been oil painting, and I won't show the brand because I'm not advertising anybody, but I use olive butter. So just a plain olive butter. Avocado butter would work, shea butter. I personally like olive butter. I lived in Crete for 6 months and I fell in love with olives, olive butter, olive oil, olive products, you know, and I just love to ingest it, you know, in all sorts of ways. But it works brilliantly. You don't have to use soap, you don't get dry fingers, and it literally removes everything. And then I've got this really delightful old towel. It's got a little bit of texture, so I give myself a little rub down with that and that gets rid of it. And I, you know, wear my oil painting dungies as well. So these ones I tend to, because they're really grubby. And someone had commented on my Instagram the other day, oh, I really like your dungies, which I get asked a lot as well. Where are your dungies from? I've had these dungarees for about 30 years, I think. So they're pretty old. And yeah, so I can't remember where I got them from. Anyway, thanks for keeping me company, and I will hopefully see you really, really soon. Thanks for watching and commenting if you've left a comment. I have a nice cup of tea or coffee in the mornings and then dip into the comments. It's always lovely to have your company there. Keep your lights shining as bright as you can, of course. Self-care to the max. I will if you will. And I will see you really, really soon in the next video. So loads and loads of love from me to you. Softest hugs, and bye for now. Bye.
Who tried? Well, you could fall, but then again, you might learn.